Hello, I am the Script Doctor. Sometimes, as a writer, you think of a story that is too big to be a feature but too small to be a television series. You have a big world, great characters, but you know that your story won't fill out a 22-episode arc. It may only work as a 10 or 8 or 6 episode series. In that case, you have the benefit of the miniseries format. A contained story too long for a feature but too short for a season of television. They are a great alternative when challenged with a great idea that doesn't fit within the typical structure of feature or TV. It allows you to focus on the story you want to tell and explore the world you've made. What excites people in Hollywood about miniseries is that we expect to get a really good and really tight story, where every episode, every moment, and every choice counts and pays off by the end. It's a rare category of entertainment where you know there won't be any filler. It also allows you to revisit the world again with another miniseries later on. A great example of this was 1983's V, a two-part miniseries about alien invasion. It was later followed up with a three-part miniseries, V The Final Battle, and that led into a single season of V The Series in 1984. It's a fantastic sci-fi show, and if you haven't seen it, I suggest checking it out. The miniseries appears to be the plan with the Disney Star Wars The Mandalorian. So after Chapter 1, I was expecting another episode of growth and change. Sadly, Chapter 2, The Child, really disappoints. This will contain some spoilers, so if you have not seen The Mandalorian, please pause this video, watch the episode, and come back for my review. Oddly similar to Batwoman in result, but definitely not execution, the second episode of The Mandalorian doesn't bring any change to the characters from the previous episode. What happened in Chapter 2? Essentially, Crooks stole the wheels off his car, leaving it on cinder blocks, and our hero has to get the Crooks breakfast in exchange for the wheels. That's pretty much it. Does the Mandalorian mention about getting a security system for his ship? No. After his two encounters with the Jawas, does he learn how to outthink them or take advantage of them? No. This episode's premise doesn't challenge the Mandalorian's character. It's just a circumstance, and the circumstance doesn't result in a change. At the start of the episode, the Mandalorian has completed his mission and is en route to claim his bounty. At the end of the episode, the Mandalorian has completed his mission and is en route to claim his bounty. The hero ends his episode with the same objective as he started it. The only difference being is that he has made it off the planet, which could have, and in my opinion should have been the start of episode 2 and not the end. Chapter 2 is 27 minutes of filler. On top of that, it pretty much ignores what happened in the previous episode. We start with the Mandalorian walking back to his ship with the baby in tow. Why is he walking? Didn't he ride to that village on a domesticated blurg? Where's the blurg? You spent 6 minutes last episode teaching him how to use this darn thing and claiming it's the only way to get to the compound, so where the hell did it go? If it started with him approaching the blurg and the thing ran off because it wasn't properly secured and we see our hero letting out a disappointed sigh, then we'd understand why he has to walk. With that context, we can see he's going to have a difficult time getting back to his ship. He'd be put in an underdog situation. We'd also see that it alludes to a possible character flaw, a lack of thinking ahead and or caring for the things he finds important. At least, that is what I would do if I were writing this. As he travels through this canyon, he is ambushed by 3 Trandoshans. He takes out 2 and kills a third that was charging at the baby with an axe ready to strike. It's a good set piece, but nothing happens as a result. The Mandalorian sees a tracking fob that one of the attackers dropped and just carries on. He doesn't search the attackers, doesn't see if one is alive to question, nothing. We get a nice hint with the scene that there will be other hunters after this child, but the fact that the Mandalorian doesn't appear to care about this is odd. He's already dealt with IG-11 that wanted to kill the child, and since that's a different objective than the orders he was given, then that would mean someone else has set up a bounty for the child as well. Would it not be to the benefit of the Mandalorian to find out who from one of the other hunters? Maybe they have more money, or a large pile of Beskar steel. Maybe the Mandalorian can set up a bidding war with the other contractor. But instead, we cut to a campsite where the Mandalorian repairs his armor and injuries while the cute little baby escapes from his carriage and tries to help. In the morning, the Mandalorian returns to his ship to find Jawas taking it apart. He snipes a few of them before they take off in their sandcrawler. The Mandalorian chases after them in a scene very reminiscent of Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. He fails to stop them and returns to see what damage was done to his ship. Technically, all of this is good so far. We have a conflict and a goal. But what we don't have is urgency. We don't have a set time frame of when the Mandalorian has to return his bounty, nor do we get another attempt at other bounty hunters after the child. Or to be more accurate, a proper setup that there will be more hunters after this child on this planet, which could have been established with an interrogation scene between the Mandalorian and the Trandoshans earlier. Or it could have been established with another bounty hunter following our main character at a distance in a very discreet manner. It's not much to ask to inject a little dramatic irony for us, the audience, to know something the main character does not, and also create a level of uncertainty and dread. Instead, we get the Mandalorian walking to the Ugnaughts' homestead, where he suggests our hero trade for the return of his parts. For some reason, the music swells to epic proportions as the Ugnaught takes the Mandalorian through the rain to the Jawas. It's rather out of place and not really a scene we need. There could have been a cut to the morning where the Ugnaught is bringing the Mandalorian and the child to the Sandcrawler. The whole shot at night moving through the rain, it's not a needed visual. But what we learned so far is that just a little over 10 minutes into this particular episode, almost 3 days have passed for the Mandalorian. Day 1 was the walk back and the fight with the Trandoshans. Day 2 was finding the Jawas raiding his ship, and now Day 3 is a meet with those very same Jawas. With this much time passing and no consequences as a result, the adventure feels passive. Without importance, without risk, without competing stakes, it is just, well, there. The only issue our hero faces in this episode is that he's trapped on the planet unless he can get his parts back. It's a good conflict, but something like this needs to have a larger impact on the character. Because there was no established window for the Mandalorian to complete his mission, because there's no urgency regarding his clan needing the Beskar steel, and because 2 days have passed since he last encountered anyone trying to kill or steal the child from him, what is at risk if he doesn't get his parts right now? How is it different for him if he gets his parts a week from now, or a month, or a year? Well, it isn't. The show says it doesn't matter. Our main character has not established or elevated the importance of these parts, and it is something he should have. The parts have to have more weight to his mission than just getting off the planet. We can assume those things, but unless we see how it affects the character and elevates the risk to him achieving their goal, it doesn't have an impact. Because of the amount of time that has passed so far, it appears only to irritate him at most instead of cause him conflict or concern for his job. After a little bit of back and forth with the Jawas, they agree to return the Mandalorian's parts in exchange for an egg. They take him to the cave where the egg is held, and the Mandalorian faces off against a giant rhino. He gets thrashed about with his chest plate damaged and covered in mud. He draws his knife and holds it out as a last effort to face the beast as it charges. The child raises its hand and lifts the rhino into the air. The Mandalorian sees the child struggling with this feat before fainting. The beast lands, and the Mandalorian manages to stab it in the neck. How was he able to kill that giant creature with just a 6-inch blade? It doesn't look like it could go deep enough to reach a vital organ. When he removes the knife, no blood spews out. While the rhino rushing and knocking over the Mandalorian was cool, once it was lifted by the 50-year-old baby, seeing it taken out so easily with such a tiny weapon did not seem believable in a fantasy western set in outer space, at least not based on the difficulty presented to the character before that moment. If the blade was all he had, I would have expected him to find a way on the creature's back, hack away at the beast while trying to hold on. You know, using those newly developed skills he acquired when taming the blurg. But no, we get a quick kill by a mediocre weapon. Let's say that the blade was poisonous, and that's what actually killed the creature. I could buy that, but you still need to show us that the blade is poisonous beforehand. Heck, I could do it with that first scene. Have the Mandalorian interrogate a Trandoshan. The Mandalorian draws his knife and scratches the Trandoshan. He states that if he stabbed him with the blade, he'd die instantly from the poison, but because it was just a scratch, he has about 30 seconds until the poison kills him. He'll administer the antidote if the Trandoshan tells him who his contract is with. This gives us a good character development moment. We will see the methods a Mandalorian will take to get information. We show him giving a choice with his prisoner, and we see that he's taking initiative in finding out what obstacles he may face until he turns in the bounty. There's plenty of time to put that into the show, but for some reason we don't get anything fun to help further develop this character. So what we do get is a Deus Ex Machina knife with the assist by the baby Minch using force powers. The Mandalorian returns to the Jawas with the egg, where they immediately feast on the orange goo inside. I guess it's like a drug and would explain why the Jawas' eyes are red instead of yellow. They get their parts and return to the ship at around the 23-minute mark. From there, it's a montage of them repairing the ship. The Mandalorian asks the Ugnaught to join his crew, but the little guy refuses, choosing to be free of such adventures. adventures. I guess the Mandalorian didn't score enough influence points to keep him along. We get some beauty shots and epic music of the Mandalorian taking off into outer space, but it really doesn't line up with the visuals. It seems to be consistently out of place with the episode. Why have this big boisterous tune playing while they're riding in the night to the Jawas? Why have the same big theme play when the ship takes off for outer space? It's like hearing the Superman theme playing when you fill up your car with gas. It's so out of place. I feel like the next time we'll hear that fanfare will be when the Mandalorian buys a sandwich. It bugs me because I really like the fanfare and the mood music. It reminds me of the late 80s, early 90s TV adventure specials. It's also fairly different from traditional Star Wars themes and rather refreshing. When all is said and done with Chapter 2, I don't see a point of this episode. I think it's because it's missing a final beat to go over what the Mandalorian has taken away from this adventure. Like when he says his goodbye to the Ugnaught, he should have added a line like, "I'll remember to lock the ship next time I land," or something. But because there isn't any real closure on this side quest, the episode feels lacking and more like filler than moving the story forward. And when you're making a miniseries, it's because you have a concise story to cover and grow over a shorter length. But here we are getting a prime example of filler, as if the original story wasn't detailed enough to cover 8 episodes, which makes me think that maybe this story should have been a movie instead. These first 2 episodes were not very economical with their usage of time to tell a story. The 2 episodes we've seen thus far could be rewritten into one 20-minute adventure with nothing lost, and for a show that supposedly has a massive budget per episode giving us a little over 25 minutes of story, and given the locations, costumes, and effects, I'm sorry, but I'm not seeing the money on the screen. By comparison to other Disney Star Wars properties, The Mandalorian is superior, but when comparing it overall to other sci-fi or westerns or known Star Wars games, cartoons, and movies, it's rather mediocre. In fact, the show plays more like watching a video game than an actual movie. First episode, turn in a bounty to get an armor upgrade. Second episode, bring your bounty back only to find your ship stripped apart. Go on a side quest to get a meaningless egg to trade for parts. Then the next episode might involve turning in the bounty, only to find the contact is missing, so he has to ask around and get a new companion to teach him how to ride a flying creature to get to the next town. Who knows? Chapter 2, The Child, does not do anything to make me look forward to the next episode. And the one thing you want in your story is something extra, something unpredictable and exciting to bring people back for another adventure. What was shown in this episode doesn't bring anything new or exciting to the story. Story-wise, this feels off and stretched out. As a result, for the moment, it doesn't feel like it's worth the expense of a Disney Plus subscription. It is fortunate the service has a large catalog of shows to view, but this is a flagship show. There should be no punches pulled, no risk avoided. It should be an all-out celebration of the service, but rather it feels more like we're being strung along instead of embraced with a great story. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. If you have anything to add to this episode, please leave a comment below. Thank you for watching, and never forget, it all starts with the script.